This is Orlando's Sentinel Now.
Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, June 24th, and this is Orlando Sentinel Now. Today, we talk about real estate in Central Florida and the low inventory that there is, as well as going through a walk through one of Central Florida's parks. I'm your host, Joe Mario Pedersen, and joining me today, I have business reporter Trevor Frazier, as well as Things to Do reporter Patrick Connolly. Thank you both so much for being here. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Trevor, kicking things off with you first. In your most recent headline, many buyers priced out as Orlando home values boom. Experts have ideas on how to boost the inventory. Now, before we start exploring those solutions, I wanted to ask you first about what the inventory looks like in Central Florida right now.
Right. So this is the issue that inventory has been dropping for years, but over the pandemic dropped significantly. It was down 61%, I think, in May from a year before. In April, we actually hit our lowest inventory of all time. It was 2,600 homes for sale on any given day in April, which is under a 3-week supply. It means that if every home were to be sold, it would only take less than 3 weeks to sell them all. So this is an issue that we're running into. Now, it depends on which side of this you're on, because if you are a homeowner right now, well, home values are rising through the roof. My home gained about $20,000 over the last year. So that's really nice if you are a homeowner. If you're not a homeowner and you want to be, this is a problem. This means that it's really hard for you to find anything. If you're trying to sell homes, if you're a realtor, this is a problem. It means it's really hard to get listings. It's really hard to get anything out there. So it is something that a number of people have looked into, how to get us more supply, how to get us more houses. And it's worth noting that there are a couple different factors here as to why we don't have more houses in the first place. During the pandemic, we had a lot of people moving out of cities, out of places where they were renting and deciding to move to the suburbs since they got sent to work from home. And they said, hey, I don't have to live in a city anymore. I can live wherever I want. So they started buying single family. And at the same time, you had a lot of other people who just would have normally put their house on the market, but during a pandemic, didn't want to do it. So that is one thing that brought it down. But the larger issue, if you talk to any expert, is that we have not been building enough. We didn't build a lot after the crash in 2007, and we haven't caught up on that. And then one of the experts I talked says in this country, we haven't built enough for 7 decades. We really have gotten out of the model of building enough for everybody. So that is part of the issue. And basically, I wanted to talk to these people about what do they think could be done, because a lot of people are suggesting some really sort of grand, bold action things, and I wanted to just talk about these for a bit.
And I would like to explore those with you here. One of the more obvious solutions being here to just build more houses. But I guess the question there becomes, how do you stimulate that kind of construction?
Right. So, the problem that you run into, of course, is that building is expensive, land is expensive, labor is expensive, construction equipment is expensive. All that's very expensive. So builders aren't, really willing to just dive in and start building things if people aren't going to be paying a premium for what it is that they're building. One expert that I talked to, Logan Matashami, who is the lead analyst for a group called Housing Wire, he has suggested that the federal government should get involved. The federal government should just start throwing money to states to say, hey, if you've got projects ready, if there are people who want to build particularly multifamily housing, apartment buildings and so on and so forth, to kind of help take care of the lower income people that need to get housing, here's money to do that. Here's deficit financing to do that. And just build, just keep building. Because even if the value goes down, if they keep building, that's people at work, that's people getting housing, all of that winds up being, he said, deflationary. That winds up being an activity that justifies spending the money on it. Another guy, an attorney from St. Petersburg, Matthew Widener, who's worked a lot on foreclosures. He is actually credited by the Wall Street Journal as being one of the people who came up with the term robo-signer. If you remember when they were foreclosing on people with robots there. He has suggested that what cities could do is go through their list of liens, go through the list of properties that have thousands and thousands of dollars of liens against them. In Orlando, they identified for me more than 3,000 properties that had special assessment liens. Find the ones that are vacant lots, go to the owners of these lots, track them down, say, hey, either you pay off your lien. If your lien is over $10,000, either you pay off your lien or the city is going to foreclose on the property and sell it at auction. And then that means cheaper land. Cheaper land means there's places to build, there's things that builders can put in. There were lots that we found that are right downtown, that are, right around downtown Orlando that could be built on if somebody would go and collect this and foreclose. Now, the city said, of course, they review actions like this. It is within their power to do such a thing, but it's not terribly cost prudent. It's very expensive to track people down, to fight them in court if they decide to fight for their, property in some way, to then foreclose, go through the foreclosure proceedings and so on and so forth. So it's not something cities are particularly eager to do. It might not really wind up yielding as much inventory as we suggested, but it was one suggestion. And then there was a survey of experts from around the country that Zillow had done, and economists and real estate experts and so on. And their number one solution, more than half of over 100 of these people who were interviewed, said that the best solution would be to relax zoning rules, change it so that way in areas where you might say you can only build a single family home on a quarter-acre lot, well, make them able to build 3 or 4 or 5 units on a quarter-acre lot, make them able to put in townhomes and duplexes and triplexes, start building some of these other things to increase density and get people in. And that's something that's always talked about, that's debated about changing this. But of course, you have people who live in single family neighborhoods and so on and so forth that just say, well, we don't want that to change. We don't want to see density showing up here and so on. So again, all of these things are possible. They have, they're available, but they all have challenges. They all have, their own serious problems.
Absolutely. And as someone who's on the other end of that, trying to look for a home, I certainly hope that we can find some of these solutions become a reality, hopefully sooner rather than later. But if you're all looking for more information on this story, please go take a look at Trevor's work, available right now at OrlandoSentinel.com. Trevor, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Patrick, I want to come to you now for a Florida Fresh Air feature in which we're taking a look at Wekiwa Springs. Can you tell us about the springs, about the park, and what you're able to do there?
Sure. Well, it is summertime in Florida. It's getting hot out, and the springs are kind of just an obvious choice for people looking to have some outdoor fun. A lot of Florida's natural freshwater springs. The water ranges from about 68 to 72 degrees year round, and Wekiwa is no exception. And looking into a little bit of the history of this, it was actually among the first original Central Florida attractions. Kind of started in the mid 1800s whenever people started going there, and then there was a hotel and a bathhouse established there in the 1890s. So in a way, there's a lot of history here. Now, there's not a hotel there anymore. There's not the bathhouse, but it's kind of a similar experience to what people would have gotten to do, more than 100 years ago. You come, you lounge by the springs, you take a swim, you can snorkel, maybe have a picnic by the springs as well with charcoal grills set up and picnic tables. But beyond all of that, there's also a campground. There's a whole network of hiking trails, up to 13 and a half miles. So you can get a nice long hike in there. There's lots of wildlife to see in the park. There's a boat ramp, playground, and a concession stand that even sells, alcoholic beverages, so that you can consume in a designated area. So I would say this park really has a little bit of everything for people of all ages, and you'd be hard pressed to find something that you can't do there in terms of just outdoor enjoyment. Definitely a good summertime spot. Maybe some of the longer hikes would be tougher to do during the summer, but in terms of cooling down the springs, is prime time for that.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful location. And as you mentioned, there's so many different animals to see there. I think I've been able to see otters, gators, of course. Really, really cool stuff. But for anyone who has not been there before, what are some things that they should know before they go?
The location of this park is pretty prime. I mean, you have Blue Spring, which is maybe half an hour, 40 minutes from Orlando, but this is really a stone's throw from downtown Orlando. You go on I-4 and it's about 20 minutes from downtown, so very close. because of that, it is pretty popular during the summer months among locals and tourists alike. So you're going to want to get there early, especially on weekends and holidays. Definitely err on the side of being there early because it can reach capacity during the summer months. You should know that there's no alcohol in the park unless you're in the designated concession area or in the campground. And I should note too, this is a park that is particularly accessible. They have a lift for getting people into the spring water who maybe use a wheelchair or some other accessibility device. So particularly accessible in that way too. Pets are allowed, just not in the swimming area. And again, like I mentioned, just the capacity thing. Definitely keep that in mind whenever you're heading there.
Patrick, I usually like to ask you, as a photojournalist, if there were any images at the park that stuck with you after leaving.
I did see a hawk, a red-shouldered hawk, and I don't know if it was the same hawk or not, but I saw it on a tree right by where I parked and was not able to get a picture in time before it flew off. But then I, drove up the road a bit, went for a short hike. I saw a great egret, and then I also saw the hawk again coming back. So I remember seeing wild turkey whenever I was there maybe a month ago. And so those are definitely common sights, maybe sandhill cranes as well. So definitely a good park for wildlife too. It just kind of depends on the day what you're going to see.
Well, there you go. Just a taste of what you'd be able to see. And if you're looking for more information, be on the lookout for Patrick's Florida Fresh Air feature, which comes out every Friday. So take a look then. Patrick, thank you so much. All right, now before we leave you all today, we do want to talk about Thursday's weather presented by Premier Sotheby's International Realty. Thursday is looking like a thunderstorm Thursday, as odds are at 70% of thunderstorms during the day. That percentage falls to 50% in the evening and 20% later at night. Today's high is at 86 degrees and the low is predicted to be at 74. Thunderstorms linger into Friday with the odds at 70% all day. The high should be at 83 and the low is forecast for 75. Showers and thunderstorms stretch on into the weekend, but more on that in tomorrow's show. And if you're all looking for more information on weather or any of the stories that we talked about here on OSN today, be sure to take a look at orlandosentinel.com. And for those of you who are subscribers to the Orlando Sentinel, thank you so much for continuing to support our work and supporting local journalism. If you want to support us, it's easy to do so. All you need to do is visit orlandosentinel.com/subscribe. As for OSN, that is our show here for today. A big thank you to Trevor and Patrick for keeping us filled in what's going on. We'll be back again with more news tomorrow at noon. We'll see you then. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Watch Orlando's Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on orlandosentinel.com.